Welcome to a new episode of Series C. Today's episode is actually quite interesting because the guest we have today founded not one but two unicorn startups. He actually has this very interesting process where he validates his ideas before he actually begins working on them. And one of the most important questions we get asked from our students as well as the community is how to validate new startup ideas. So today we have with us Sandeep Agarwal, who's the founder of Droom. So let's together try to enter his mind and understand how he really thinks about the startup world. Stay tuned. We'll talk for maybe 40 minutes and then I'll open it up for questions. So please think of your questions beforehand, keep them short, succinct, and intelligent. के सामने मेरा मान रख लेना. Right? But so there are 8 categories I want to speak about. Okay. So first I want to start with your 0 to 1 journey. Then we'll talk about the 4 departments in any business school. We'll talk about some finance. We'll talk about some marketing. We'll talk about operations. Then we'll talk about tech. Okay. Then we'll talk about crisis management.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about the industry as a whole, India, tech industry, startup industry, two-wheeler, auto industry. And then we'll end up with some personal life stories,
Sure.
Okay? So we'll start with 0 to 1. You have done 0 to 1 many times, right? And these students, all of them, as part of their curriculum, have to have multiple 0 to 1 stories. You guys know that. And they're currently doing their first one, which is their drop shipping. And they have a target revenue of 10 lakhs. Which they have to do in 2.5 months. 2 months. Till now, you have not started. So essentially, in 45 days, they have to make 10 lakhs of revenue. Right? How many of you are confident you'll do it?
And then I think we should raise the target to 3.5 lakhs.
So it's a team target. But I'm very, very excited to see how well they do. Last year, our undergrad kids who come after class 12, they beat the MBA kids. The highest revenue there in 2 months went to 1.5 crores. The drone, you all know him, right? So he sells drones online. 1.5 CR. The class 12. So 0 to 1, you tell us 2 things. One is कि जब कोई idea आता है mind, how do you validate it कि ये करना है? इसमें sense बनती है, ये viable होगा. I want to start with that. How did you do it?
See, so I started Shop Clues in October 2010. And I remember it was 10-10-10, October 2010. For the word, that's my first startup. But for me, it was my actually probably 150 first startup. But first 150 actually played in my head. So I had a logo, I had a name, I had a business plan, I had a financial model. And I honestly could not tell the difference between the one playing in a head and one actually played out. So, I always had a day job. I went as a poor student to United States for my MBA. Graduated 6 days before 9/11. So US changed literally. And the company where I joined had 28,000 employees. It's called Charles Schwab. The owner is 20th richest person on earth. He disrupted the stock brokering firm industry in 1974. So I did my internship there. There were 28,000 people. When I came for full time, they had 14,000. And after I started, next 6 months, they had probably less than 10,000. And I was on a visa. So necessity is a mother of invention. So I always used to think that if I lose my job, what will I do? And then, I think I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. But visa situation, student loan never allowed me to do that. And so I think for me, 0 to 1 was really the 150 first attempt, right?
So the first 151 or the first 150, why didn't those see light of day?
Various stupid things. I think we all probably go through that, right? Maybe I try to build that along with someone who changed his job, moved somewhere else. Or we thought that maybe, this will happen, then this will happen, right? But for me, the final 0 to 1, let's say, to staying truthful to your original question, was where I reached to a stage where the regret of not doing Shop Clues would have been bigger than anything I was ready to give up. That's where I reached. And the story goes, Pratham, something like this. Around the same time in 2010, Make My Trip went public. Internet, as you know, was around for public since 1994. This is now 2010. For all practical purpose, the world had dismissed India's role in internet, right? It was it was US or China starting to look little attractive.
India only had
Right.
InfoEdge, Naukri, and
That's right.
Make My
And
Trip.
these were Web 1.0 companies, right? So that is what it is. So, and I was a Wall Street analyst. In fact, I was ranked among the top 3 best internet analysts in the world, covering companies like Google, Amazon, Expedia, Priceline, Netflix, and you name from Mark Zuckerberg to Larry Page, Sergey Brin. I'm hanging around on a daily basis. I had no plan to be back in this country. Make My Trip goes public, and I said, wait a minute. There is a company in travel which is listing itself on NASDAQ. I must find out what's happening in India. I could very well send my team here, write a research report, but I decided to visit here. Because I was a very visible Wall Street analyst, every VC, there were hardly any VC, by the way, that time, they helped me. Okay, I can help you meet Harish Bahal at Smile Group. You can meet this, Pranay at Quicker and so on. There were like half dozen companies. So I came here, I wrote a very bullish report, which is publicly available, called Has India Internet Arrived? When I wrote that report, and this was my last day when I was flying back to San Francisco, and I thought that if I truly believe in what I wrote, I should be building an underlying company rather than writing a research report. So then when I looked into the sector, right now India has food tech, name it, like there are probably 2,000 sectors and there are probably 10 companies in each sector, which is nationally visible. But that time, I of internet, E of e-commerce, M for marketplace were not even defined, right? So when I looked at it, the only large addressable opportunity I found was in e-commerce. There were 35 e-commerce companies. Most visible was Flipkart. It was touted to be a $1 billion company, but yet not $1 billion company. Right? The only company which was $1 billion that time was actually InMobi. So this is the era. So I thought that, ultimately someone will become very big. So I thought Amazon had not come in. So I said the Walmart as a symbol of almighty retailer. I said the Walmart of India will be an online company, not a physical store. And that physical store, that online company will be marketplace, not inventory-led model. And that time, 100% of Indian e-commerce companies were inventory-led. They will buy this for 10 rupees, sell for 12. This is what our ancestors have done for 3,000 years, including during Silk Route, right? So that was a thesis. So that's how I basically, so for me, again, same thing. I found that Indian retail market is 600 billion. 0.2% of that is e-commerce, which is India Time Shopping, Rediff Shopping, India Plaza, and a few more. Most of them don't exist. That's right. These all were. They took e-commerce from 1994 to 2010 from 0 to 200 million. Total GMV. One of your conference room name. I love that. I was internet analyst basically in the first decade of this century. That time in US also, e-commerce was not very big. In US, what is big is advertising. Google makes this money from advertising. Facebook makes this money from advertising. Do you know how much is the advertising per capita spend? Let's in USA. Advertising ad spend per capita in USA.
Good question. What? $200.
Anybody else?
The GDP per capita is $60,000.
Or maybe 75,000.
Sorry, $75,000 is the US GDP per capita. How much of that is ads?
So closer, so it's around $1,400 is the ad capita per spend. Do you know how much it is in India now, today?
100 rupees.
It's $2. I'm not kidding, right? It's like literally $2. In fact, it is less than $2.
1%.
Yes. So when I was starting, I was more trained as a Wall Street analyst to analyze internet advertising company. That time, the entire internet sector market cap was $500 billion. 350 of that $500 billion was Google. I would be foolish as an analyst if I ambitious, want to be top ranked, if I'm not spending disproportionately higher time on Google. So my 60% of my time will go on Google. And I had one advantage as a Wall Street analyst. I was ex-Microsoft employee. So that in a Wall Street top hedge fund manager mind, I came as more credible because I came from actual company and that to Microsoft. So anyhow, so when I was looking at for the opportunity, I tried my best to look for an opportunity in India other than e-commerce, like internet advertising, even horoscope or something. I knew internet very well. Like I knew every folk story of internet, you name it. That was I did for living. So I was looking for a business model where 100% end-to-end everything is internet. But the TAM of those was very small that time, very, very small. So that is how I came and ended up with doing the ShopClues. I thought the India retail is 600 billion. It will be 1.2 trillion in the next 1 decade, and 0.2%, which is e-commerce, could be 3 to 5%. And actually did achieve all of that. That's right. Right. So that is how I started. So that was my 0 to 1 movement.
So the way you validated your idea was by the size of the market, was by the size of the opportunity and the growth. That was clearly in front of you.
That's right.
So you actually made almost like a matrix of various different industries within the internet. How much of it is dependent on internet, how much is not dependent on internet, what is the growth going to be, and जहाँ पे आपको sweet spot मिला, वहाँ शुरू किया. This is a very scientific way of arriving at what you want to start up. It's not coming from your own problem that you're facing.
I was not. No, I don't. I will be faking if I say I was looking for some item. It was not available. So I thought, why not open a store? No.
And I think that is so interesting because most founders we meet, right? Generally, when you're telling a story about how you start, even when I talk about Masters Union, I say, हाँ, जब मैं college में था, तो मेरे को ऐसे पढ़ाया गया था, ये. But you know, a lot of times that's storytelling. But this is generally how very successful companies are created, where you see an opportunity, you go deep, research it, figure out that this is a white space. इसमें growth है, future दिख रहा है, clear है. अमेरिका में हो चुका है, 10 कंट्री और में हो चुका है, यहाँ पे होना ही है. It's writing on the wall.
That's right. So I knew what has already happened in US, what has happened in China. And when I found the element that India is ready for prime time for a digital economy, I thought I would be, as I said, regret of not doing ShopClues or not being in India would be bigger than anything I gave up. And what I gave up, by the way, if you would just allow me, I used to make $1.2 million as an annual salary. It was a lot of money, 14 years back. I used to be 5 to 10 times per week on CNBC, Fox News, ABC News. CNBC half screen, I am giving update on Google. Barack Obama, President of America, giving update on Iraq war. Americans care more about Google than Iraq, right? So I had a more FaceTime, right? I had a beautiful house which looked like Switzerland, the kind of Switzerland on the cliff of a mountain. Bunnies and deers will come, like literally from Nikesh Arora, who runs Palo Alto Network, to Larry Page, to Mark Zuckerberg. I would hang around, so intellectually very stimulating job, right? So all that, so first time in 15 years, I took a one-way ticket to India in August 2011 to start ShopClues.
And looking back, right decision?
Yeah, I think I would never trade, although my life has more public. That is why so many hands were raised that how much research you did about me. All side kind of ups and downs, but I don't think I would trade what I have done in last 13 years with anything else.
And so then you started Droom after ShopClues. So in starting Droom, also did you do a similar research?
Before I answer that, I just wanted to say when I was doing ShopClues, I was very clear I wanted to retire from ShopClues. I never thought I would be a serial entrepreneur. But life deals the card differently. So my life situation was where I had to now think about what I'm going to do beyond ShopClues. So I actually came up with 52 ideas. They are still documented with me.
Less than one.
I had 52 ideas. There are 3-4 things were common about them. They all were internet-based ideas. They all were for India. and they are like, how Karan Johar can only make love movie. Steven Spielberg can make certain genre. If Karan Johar makes sci-fi, I think he'll be failed. And if Steven Spielberg will make
Which
love
happened.
story, he'll fail, right? So I'm a asset light, technology heavy marketplace guy. So all 52 ideas were for consumer internet, India, asset light.
So itni clarity kaise? Like why
Because
not your own brand?
no,
Why
well,
not
because
in
because
healthcare?
because Pratham, I was a Wall Street analyst, so I literally, like, people may say different things about different internet, but I knew fundamentally how the internet sector is defined, and for each sector how different companies. So that advantage I definitely had, right? So I knew each and every company ever created in 1994 onwards. So I came with 52 ideas. I used some kind of, it is a little bit more theoretical model analysis. So I used some kind of broader screens, discarded 44 of them within the first 2 weeks. Now I'm left with 8. For those 8 ideas, I used to sleep with them every day. I used to dream about, I used to wake up thinking about them.
Can you share some of them?
Like a mobile wallet, like a Bumble or Tinder type, right? There were 8 of them, including Droom. So there were 8. Then I was in Silicon Valley. I was in between. That was my life's bottom. I was going through a personal crisis of very high magnitude. So then I would look for, is there any event happening which can help me to validate any of these 8 ideas? So I'll go to those conferences. I'll speak to my friends, etc. And next 1 month, I dropped 6 of them. So I was left with Droom, which I ended up doing, and one more idea. And so then
What excited you about Droom?
What excited me about Droom was, same thing what I mentioned about Shop Clues. And to some extent, I would say, I worked actually with Microsoft in their corporate headquarters in Redmond, Washington. And I had an opportunity to work very closely with Bill Gates. So I learned 3 things very clearly from him, which always stayed with me until date. He always used to say that go for something which is a large opportunity. Technology should be center of this, and you have high gross margin. If you can ensure these 3 things, startup journey will be very forgiving, and you'll be able to make a world-class company. Large TAM, technology center, high gross margin. So when I had 2 ideas, I found India was the 6th largest automobile market in the world.
Now third.
Now third. Any country, 8 to 12% of the country's GDP is automobile. When I looked at the car, single charge car can go for 500 kilometer. Car can fly. Dubai is launching a flying taxi. Car, autonomous car, right? Yesterday, in fact, my former boss from Wall Street took a Waymo car in San Francisco without a driver, and he posted a video which was accelerating. So anyhow, when I looked at all these things, and then I said, cars have become very advanced, but when it comes to buying the used car, it is still a very 19th century experience.
How many of you have bought a used car? Or in your families? How many of you have sold a car?
Oh, okay.
Damn.
Yeah. when you are buying a used car, for you it may be your first time you are buying a car. So you don't want to compromise on a sense of pride, right? So, but you are dealing with Gulhati Motor, no offense, Durga Motor, Bhagwati Motor. By the way, we work with all of them. But that was experience. If you're buying a car, you'll find a mechanic in your neighborhood. Say, I'll give you 1,500 rupees. You come accompany me, find the car, I check, and let me know. Give me a thumbs up if I should be buying this car. What will be repair estimates? So I said it should not be like this. So I thought, and then what is the definition of innovation? What is now possible, which was previously not possible? Right? So I said, these are mobility, technology of mobility. I can harness the location. I can harness the local economy. I can use a lot of data, and I can use the technology. So that's how, how I basically picked up.
So again, I think the second one also was very dependent on data, right? What are the growing sectors?
Right.
As you said, 12% of the economy is anyways auto.
That's right.
The experience currently is bad.
Right.
You saw the opportunity. It wasn't that you were trying to sell your car one day and you said, "Ye kya hai?"
No. In fact, I know very little about car. I know very little. In fact, because I spent majority of my adult life in US, so buying car in India is not like, I'm not In fact, every time when I buy car, I find one of my team member who is auto enthusiast.
By the way, I've never bought a car.
You
I
say,
rent. I rent.
okay, no. That you should change, Pratham. That's there's a different kick of owning an item, and people learned that more hard way during COVID when 3 o'clock.
Maintenance is so hard though.
See, look, I think look, around the time I started Room, the shared economy concept also picked up, right? Oyo, Airbnb, Uber, these all are shared economy, right? But I think sometime when I was raising money, I used to get this pushback from the investor. Their thesis used to be that Uber will make sure nobody buys a car. And I used to tell them it's a urban transportation solution.
Uber is.
Yeah, right. But people still need a car. If you are going to 3 different locations, you're going to Vaishno Devi during a long weekend, you want to buy something, then go to another shop and buy something. You can't do that in Uber. But my argument used to be only this. But after COVID, nobody ever asked me this question, because the Uber guy did not show up 3 in the night when you had to go to hospital, or you did not know whether you could sit on a who used your.
How many of you would not want to buy a car in life?
Ye question, like I think you should ask this question when I'm not there.
They'll be genuine, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, I think 4 years ago this number would have been higher.
But someone who raised a hand, they don't want to buy it. Please, Junisha, we should take his email. I will send you a much deeper discount coupon.
Nice. Understood, sir. So now, what I want to ask, let's move on to finance. Right? That's our first department. You fundraised from I don't know how many VCs over a period of time. How many can you count?
I have done between 2 companies I have founded, total $450 million from 17 round of capital. And in terms of investor, roughly 30 institutional investor and maybe 70, 80 individual investors. And these individual investors would be the multi-billion-dollar family office type. And
let that sink in for a second.
and not even a single penny from India. I mean, money has no color, but somehow like no money from India so far.
Right. So how does one fundraise? And not even at your level. Let's say I want to raise my first 250K.
There are $35 trillion investable, movable asset in the world. Right, $35 trillion.
10 times.
This is not jewelry or heirloom like antiques or real estate. That is separate. This is movable cash or marketable security. It's around $35 trillion. So for someone who is actually investing money, and they do investing for living, theoretically for them it is an inventory management. For them it is no different than how in Bokaro or somewhere, sorry, pardon my GK, but from where steel or coal is coming, they want to harness as much as possible, then they want to get rid of it as soon as possible. Money has the same thing, right? But I would always say there are 2 things very difficult. When you give your money to someone and call it equity, and when you give your daughter to someone and call it Kanyadan. I think these are the 2 toughest things in my view. When you give your daughter to someone and call it Kanyadan, you can still be confident about your upbringing of your daughter, her education, her own personality, and her resilience and strength. But money going to wrong hand will never come back. And that is why it is tough, right? That is why it is tough. So I think
it's tough for the investors,
yeah.
You're saying.
One of my relatives, he was a very senior guy in Indian Army, and he used to tell me that, Sandeep, whenever we hire new Jawan, if someone says, sir, give me the gun, I'll go and kill highest number of people at the border, we never hire him, because the army's gun is going to, butcher him first. So, so I feel that first one thing which worked in my favor was actually accepting that it's going to be tough. Right? Because a lot of time you have a different expectation, you train yourself accordingly, and when your expectation mismatch, you give up. So I expected it was tough. I knew it is tough. Second is that a lot of things, Pratham, I think you have covered probably in the previous 2-3 questions, is really, I think investors, investors like, see, let me say this way, realization, dreaming is more valuable in investors' mind versus the realization of that dream. Elon Musk has said why human species has to be single planetary species. Right, number one. Second, Earth is decaying and dying. Third, there is $100 trillion of mineral and mining worth of wealth on Mars and others. He has not taken anyone to Mars and brought it back, right? But SpaceX is worth 250 billion on that story, right? So articulation of dream in 4K or 8K create more value than the realization of dream, right? But obviously, as an entrepreneur, if you're only articulating the story but not realizing the dream, then I think you are not truthful to your profession. But I just want to tell you that money raising is, I think, one of the great talent you need is your ability to articulate the future, think aloud, and someone who's listening can very clearly see what you are going to do and how. And more clarity you can bring, the 35 trillion will follow you. That's what it is. So I sold India story, I sold the retail story, I sold the under-penetrated e-commerce story, all that. And I work very hard to deliver those.
Very interesting, right? So his pitch is on India, on the industry, on the gap, and not even yet himself, right? So the story is about something bigger than him or his idea. Your idea comes right at the end. Yeah, market इतनी बड़ी है, opportunity इतनी बड़ा है, gap इतना बड़ा है, incumbent कोई नहीं है. Hence, I will do this.
Yeah.
And that's when the goosebumps come, right?
See, it is very difficult for us to wear the hat of an investor, right? But if you can, like literally, if you can visualize what is how he's going to view, how he views the world, and you can align what you are doing with that, I think you will have a winning story.
What's the best story that you've heard other than your own?
I think for me, the best story still is a very archaic story now, is when Steve Jobs fly to Texas to meet Ross Perot, who's a billionaire of that time. And Steve Jobs is in his 20s and raising his money. He has only 3-4 months of money left. And he meets Ross Perot. He find him interested. But he was controlling himself not to show his desperation, because he knew, see, nowadays a lot of these knowledge is very easily available, but that time it was not. There was no YouTube, there was no Master Union, there was no accessibility to the people. He somehow knew that more desperation he shows, lesser likely the investor will say yes. So he went there, met the meeting, he could gauge that he's very interested. Then he comes back and he decided that when Rose calls me, first of all, he did not know that he will call me, but if he calls me, I will actually miss his call once or twice. You know, in Hindi movie, Shah Rukh Khan has given a lesson that if agar ladki interested hai to palat ke dekhegi. I think that's what Steve Jobs was perhaps doing. So that exactly happened. His assessment was fine. Ross Perot was interested. He called, and Steve Jobs, so seeing his message, but he did not pick it up for several times. And by the time he picked up, Ross Perot had enough of FOMO that I will lose Steve Jobs deal.
Hence, I should.
Yeah.
Now, FOMO is very real.
Yes.
Have you created artificial FOMO in your?
No, not artificial, but look, I can tell you after being so many years on Wall Street, 13 years as an entrepreneur, I personally this is like my own framework. I personally feel I call it HTFD, FD, and I think all four things have to be aligned for you to be raising money. H stands for herd instinct, T is thematic, F is FOMO, and D is feeling of I'm getting a good deal. Deal. So in my view, if I look at the 17 round of capital I have raised, these things either created by me or by situation, or I was. See, herd is like, okay, everyone, herd is all of a sudden, fintech is a flavor of the season. Thematic is like now, like let's say, right, AI, right? And FOMO would be that, hey, can you send the money by end of this month? Otherwise, I'm getting a lot of pressure to close this round. And people fake it. I'm invested in 77 companies, right? People fake it. But I think by now, I don't have magic wand. I can't tell 100% of the time when they are faking, but I think half of the time I can tell, right? So I would not recommend faking. FOMO should be a truthful thing, and you are lucky when you are able to communicate that FOMO and that FOMO is working for you, right? And deal is, everyone likes invest like a deal. I mean, Warren Buffett told this in 1965: buy low, sell high. So everyone likes that deal.
Now, one thing I would share from the Masters Union story, that in the three cohorts, the companies that have successfully raised have always been those companies that have identified the trend of that year. It is not dependent on who the founder is, what the background is, what revenue they have. None of that. 3 years ago, we had eight networks. I don't know if you guys have heard of. His name is Mohit Paliwal. He built a Kuku FM competitor, right? 8 network. And at that time, Kuku FM's, DAOs was like going crazy, right? Everyone's talking about it. He started it. He was able to fundraise just on the fact that he was an IITian starting a Kuku FM competitor. Even this year, the two companies that have been most successful at raising, one has been in gaming and the other one has been in AI.
Yeah,
right.
And third, I would say would be quick commerce, right? I mean, I think quick
I
commerce.
think there it's harder to.
Everyone is doing a drop shipping, should try their hands on quick commerce too.
It really depends on the trend. So like, do look at the trends as you're starting thinking of your VIPs already. I'm sure many of you are. VIPs are venture initiation program, where students have to build a startup for around 6 months. Look at the trends. I think like if you're going against the wind, it's going to be that much harder. If you're going with the wind, it's going to be that much easier. As he said, the market is going to be that much more forgiving. All right, so understood. This is very interesting. Let's move on to your IPO. Right, I read your Wikipedia, and half of it is about your IPO. Okay. That you plan to do it, then obviously the market wasn't good enough. Then you plan. So, how do you think about IPOs? How do you think about exits? Do you have to sell the exit story to the investor? Just like educate us about that part of the game.
See, selling the exit story, you are by a founder proactively actually could be a double-edged sword, right? Because then there may be, then investor may think that, are you really building this for a long-term horizon, right? So to some extent, I would say half of the exit story prerogative is for investor to assess that what could be the likely exit for this company.
Let the investor worry about it.
Right, yes. Now, whenever our first VC is leading your round, and typically it happens when first VC is leading the round, they will come up, they will have an exit clause, right? Because they have the LPs and they have this 5+2 or 7+2 type of exit type of stories. So, they are not telling you every day, but you see that in your term sheet, you see that in the definitive agreement, right? And ultimately, there are only 2-3 ways you can convert your paper money into actual money. One is you are doing a subsequent round and you are doing secondary for some of the shares held by you or the ESOP held by employees. Second one is outright purchase of the company. And third is IPO, right? This is the only way you can, right? You can exit. So I don't know, Pratham, for me, I always was trained. I have worked with 3 Fortune 25 companies in their headquarters in the United States, Wall Street analysts. So I always thought I'm going to create in any category a world-class large company, and the logical exit for that is really the IPO. So when I started, and that, right now we have, of course, like today I read Zomato is up 5x in last 2 years, right? After IPO, it went down, right? Paytm is like 1/10 or maybe 1/8 of its IPO value. But forget about the performance of these new age companies. But 2-3 years back, India had no room. The Lal Street did not value new age companies, which can grow 5x faster than the GDP growth, but may not be immediately profitable, right? So, but I always had an IPO plan every time I thought of the company. So when I started ShopClues, it was a Delaware company registered in US. And when I started Droom, it was registered in India. because I thought while this company will build its business in India, but for IPO it will tap into the Nasdaq. So that's how I did it. And in fact, for Droom, we were almost inch away from listing in USA when an old friend of mine convinced me to explore India market. So we filed IPO in India, and in a hindsight, we were 45 days or 60 days late. Somehow that time, India IPO market became pre-Paytm, post-Paytm, interest rate revision because of control of inflation and the Ukraine crisis. So as you know, from January 2022 till now, at least the new age companies, IPO is not necessarily the in thing.
But it's also very interesting, two things, that many companies that are listed, that are founded in Singapore, US, are actually now flipping back to India. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
Razorpay
Story.
is the biggest example. I think they
Razorpay.
probably even gave 350 million in Britex.
Yeah. And even Eruditus,
Right.
large
That's
tech company based in Singapore, moving to India, paying hefty tax.
Right.
Just because they think that the India market will be a lot more forgiving to their IPO. PhonePe.
Yeah. So I think PhonePe and Razorpay, I mean, I know it's not a topic, but like PhonePe and Razorpay, I think it's more driven by the regulatory thing. A decade back, Chinese government asked Alibaba to move all its payment businesses back in China and in fact remove all the foreign ownership. So I think those two are driven by that, but I'll be, other companies you mentioned. Yeah, but yes. But I think Pratham, your point is very well, absolutely. Like when a friend of mine called, he's an investment banker. He said, "Why? I heard that you are thinking of listing in USA. Why are you not considering India?" I said, "In India, I'm not profitable yet. Will someone even take a meeting?" He said, "Sandeep, 10 companies have already listed." And he told me literally every company who came IPO in 2022, and bankers know all the companies which are, because they have pitched to everything. So yeah, I mean, India is that way is becoming attractive. The only thing which changed, I would say, post Paytm or when the market crashed until now, is that new age company and profitable is still, I think, very, very fantastic. Investors can have their cake and eat too. But if you're new age, not profitable, investors
you have to time it well. You have to be the. So when are you planning now?
See, again, Pratham, I think as they say, it's better to be lucky than smart. So we do not know how it will play out, but our plan is that we may raise one round of capital towards end of this calendar year and file our IPO in India towards mid of next year.
And how far are you from profitability?
Profitability just maybe matter of months or quarter. Yeah.
This is EBITDA.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Understood. Do we get allocation? as Masters Union students?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, whatever the thing is.
Good, this is on camera.
No. See, look, I actually, honestly, when I came from Silicon Valley, I have a lot of Silicon Valley idealism embedded in me. So when I interviewed someone and I said, would you take ESOP? And they said, नहीं, मुझे 2 लाख रुपए ज़्यादा दे दो, ESOP नहीं चाहिए. So for me, that was like thappad on my face, right? But like I interviewed 10 people, 9 actually said that. So anyhow, to answer your question, by the way, I mean, both in ShopClues and Droom, we had an ESOP culture right from the day one. And that ESOP is quite substantial, right? Only thing is, I think, because when we were going in India, the 2 companies I built, the small thing I realized is that India company law still assume you are creating a company ultimately to do some kind of cheating and running some scam, right? So
all businessmen are scams.
That's right. So yeah, so it is very easy for me to actually give stock to anyone in Delaware or Singapore, but in India it becomes very difficult. Yeah.
Let's move to marketing a little bit. For both the companies, did your fundraising happen before your GTM or after your initial GTM? Or and what have been the strategies that you've learned in India, consumer behavior wise, that work well?
Yeah. See, Pratham, it goes back to your very first question when you kind of concluded for the audience about the fundraising and what is required, right? So actually, both in ShopClues and Droom, I have done 2 rounds of capital. Forget about GTM, even my product was not done.
Because of the story?
Because of the story and maybe the clarity of the story, where I was able to give very high conviction, confidence to an investor that whatever I am narrating will also be reality.
Because it was so clear.
Yes, I was very clear with my KPIs, with my number, with my financial modeling, my deck, etc. In Shop Clues, I actually got $1.5 million from 10 of my Wall Street friends. Then I met one of the very famous VC. I will not name him, but among the top 3 best VCs in the world. He said, "You are Sandeep Agarwal. You come on TV. You are Wall Street analyst. 1.5 million is nothing. Why don't I give you 5 million? You need a lot of money. You are doing an e-commerce business. It's a capital-intensive business." One friend of mine said that you raised this 1.4 million and then raised his 5 million. And they told me, obviously, VC told me, don't take that 1.4 million. I agreed on VC's suggestion. So after 2 months, he gave me a term sheet with a 50% higher valuation and $5 million. That time, 5 million, in my view, would be equal of around 25, 30 million right now for the first round, right?
And pre-product.
And yes, no. In fact, I have a day job. I'm on a Wall Street analyst. Now this guy tells me that, because this is a very prestigious VC. So he tells me that getting a term sheet from us is getting an admission letter from Harvard University. Congratulations, you have arrived. Right? So he gave this term sheet. I convinced 3 of my other team members who became my team members in Shop Clues, Indian living in Silicon Valley, who came back with me. I convinced them also to join me. And then this VC's term sheet only helped to do more bold decisions. I remember it was 2nd August 2011. One of my team member who worked with eBay for a decade, he tells me that today is my last day at eBay and I have a farewell party. And unlike our typical Indian, he was very clear skinned. In fact, a lot of people confuse him as a Caucasian. So around 7:30 p.m. at my house, the bell rings, he comes. His face is red. He's drunk. He says, "Sandeep, choda 10 saal kaam kiya, ye vagara choda, ready to start the evening wear." And that day, after waiting for 2 months for this Harvard University's admission letter, which is not telling me when to start the session, I had called them in the afternoon that today you have to tell me whether you are giving them money, and answer is only 2, yes or no. Because they would tell me the various reasons, partner is flying, we are unable to decide, the law firm, etc. I said, today it is only yes. Are you giving me money? Yes. Or are you giving money? No. And he said no. So my team members now ring the bell and say, "Sandeep, left everything, I believe in you," etc. And I took him inside. I poured 2 tequila and I said, "Congratulations, but we have no money." So this is how actually my journey started, right? But anyhow, and I remembered I had packed my household. My ex-wife was vacationing in India with my kids. She came only for 2 weeks to help me pack the stuff and take a farewell party from every friend and to go back. So she had a deadline and I was going to join after 3 days later. So now she's there and I said, "There's no money." So we said, "What are we going to do?" We'll say, "We'll still go ahead with everything." So I stayed for 3 weeks. I went back to every investor who gave me 1.4 million. I said, "Sorry, but is your offer still on?" And I actually ended up getting 2 million. So that's how it started. And then the second round of capital, I came here from, Inc. 42 or someone ran a story that famous Wall Street analyst starts an e-commerce business called Shop Clues. That day, I probably was bombarded by 10 VCs who were the total number of VCs in India. And a month and a half later, I had a second offer and I was not even commercially launched.
Very interesting. So, I mean, students here are not Wall Street analysts for 10 years. So their startup story would, if they were to start up now, would be different, right?
See, actually, Pratham, there's a lot of argument for 2 things, I would say. First of all, let me say this way. In my view, generally speaking, it may not happen empirically every day, but generally speaking, the moment you say, "This is me, this is my background, and this is what I want to do," I think you have deserved first round of capital because you are challenging the status quo. You are daring to do something other than the herd, right? Second, you say, "This is me, this is what I want to do, This is my team member, and this is my company's name. This, I have registered the company. I have left my job. In my view, this is a second round of capital. Third is you say, this is me, this is my team. Everyone has left the job. These are the 3 laptops we have. This is my office. This is a logo. This is a company we raised. Here are some of the wireframes of the product we are building. In my view, that is a round 3. Round 4 is I have launched it. I don't have metrics to show the traction yet. Round 5 is early traction. Next round is massive traction. Theoretically, if you look at from the time Tom Perkins graduated from Stanford University and created Kleiner Perkins, and Hewlett and Packard graduated same year from Stanford University and started HP, 1956 until now. Actually, that is how the money has evolved. Its only thing is, in this country, it is in scarcity. So it works differently. You are ready to give your arm and leg for the first round of capital, right? That is how it happens. Like literally, you want to say, I will have scale of Amazon, profitability of Google, and products of Facebook. And once investor is convinced, then he'll give you 250K. Right? But theoretically, in my view, if you map the, let's say, last 70 years of Silicon Valley, and I know this is not Silicon Valley, but I also know India has come a long way.
Still, I mean, like, one of the things I hear from my alumni is that when they go into the market for fundraising, unless it's a in trend and you have a lot of tailwinds, right? You're in AI, etc. They ask, yaar, nahi, dikhao traction, dikhao sales, dikhao ye, dikhao wo.
See, by the way, Pratham, like, no offense, but a lot of Indian VCs, in my view, they are money lenders in disguise of venture capitalists. They don't have risk appetite, right? So they want to have their cake and eat too. Money lender is happy with a 12% interest rate and maybe 2% at portfolio level default. But VC, early stage VC wants 200x, mid stage VC wants 30x, late stage VC wants 3 to 5x, right? So I think it is really the availability of the capital. Domestic pool of capital in this country has gone up, which was not the case. And I think what I'm saying still does not look like reality. I know you are also not fully sold, but honestly, that is how it should be. The moment you challenge the status quo, see that $35 trillion, there's more capital than the entrepreneurs, right? Also, I would say that how much are you prepared? If you have also trained yourself that until my MVP or my GTM or my PMF, those 3 are my 3 milestones for 3 rounds of capital, then you have not, Elon Musk actually has articulated, like literally as if I'm sitting in my bedroom in Mars and looking at the Earth from the window. But so far he's not taken anyone, as far as I know. When he'll take someone, he'll say, oh, मेरा वहाँ बैग रह गया, वापस ले जाओ, मैं बीमार हो गया, क्या मैं अगली फ्लाइट से जा सकता हूँ, ये लगेज ज्यादा हो गया, इसका क्या करें, right? He will hit into the reality, but he's been able to articulate that, right? So I think, Pratham, it will evolve like that in my view, right? I mean, 2 years back, everyone said, gone are the days where if you're not profitable, you can't even survive one day and all. And investors, like everyone behaved as if the internet was a bubble and it has busted. But I think it is today I can say that same FOMO you saw in 2018 to 2021, I think starting to happen again. Perhaps a year from now, we'll do the same thing. And I'm just fortunate that I have seen a few cycles in India and in Silicon Valley. That's why I can say. But in my view, yes. I mean, if you know your TAM, you know your competition, you know your product, you have a team, you have demonstrable, you are a very strong person, you are emotionally very intelligent, your numbers are on your fingertips, all those will obviously help you raise money. And guess what? If you have these things you don't have, but you have a GTM, you have an MVP, but yet investors will not give the money.
It's very interesting. I think my biggest takeaway has been that on the story, on the clarity of the story, and on your conviction, you can do a lot more than what you can even with a working product and revenue.
That's right.
And that's true. And another thing that I'm learning is that today we all say that market is tough, VCs are not investing, this, that. But we don't know what 6 months from now is going to look like. The cycles happen every, 5-6 years?
I have received, for whatever it is worth, it is not a done deal yet. We have our own share of struggle. And in fact, out of my 13 years entrepreneur journey, last 2 years were probably the most challenging for me after our IPO did not happen. But let me say this way, in last 3 months, I have received more inbound interest from investors than combined together from January 2022 until December 2023. Right? So these are the early signs of things picking up. Yesterday, someone told me that, hey, obviously a friend of mine, I lost 3 deals this week. Earlier, they were saying, I'm not in a hurry because if I like this guy, I'm going to give him money. But until I move, I don't think someone else will come and beat me.
There was a time when it was said that services companies cannot raise from VCs. VCs will always invest in product companies that scale, not linearly, but non-linearly, right? But when Masters Union came into the market last year, we were not raising, but we got so much inbound interest. And we said, no, we are a services company. We are not a edtech. Right. We have a campus and we have students, we have a hostel. They're like, no, it's okay, but like the business model makes sense. So, we should still talk.
And Pratham, I'm not doing a lip service. You are hosting me and I'm sitting here doing a panel with you. But honestly, when you gave me the tour, your students here, every attention to detail. If it is, this whole, your whole facility and premise and your vision and everything, biological age is 3 to 4 years. But practical age to me looks like 1 decade. And perhaps that's what.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And perhaps perhaps investor. No, it is very important. All is well is very important, right? I think so. But maybe you saw that way, but investors saw something more than what you were presenting.
No, but I think whatever the going wisdom is, 6 months later, that's going to change. Paytm will come back up. Zomato will go down at some time and then come back up.
That's right.
All these things
it's a whole cycle.
Cycle. So let's move on to operations a little bit. I went on your website. How many of you went on the website genuinely? Okay, what was the most interesting thing you saw on the website? And there's only one correct answer. The aeroplanes. Yeah. You're selling aeroplanes.
Yes.
What's the story?
Serious answer is anything which has a wheel and anything which has a wheel and motor.
Anything which sounds like Droom.
Anything which has a wheel and motor, human being used for transportation via the marketplace. Right? If you cut this from your edit, we have not sold even a single plane. But here, everyone knew Droom through a plane, right? The year we launched the plane category, if I interviewed 300 people for a job, and that time I used to ask them, how did you hear about Droom first time? And at least 40% people will say, oh, you are the same company which sell plane, right? So, like when I was Wall Street analyst, sometime, I would see, you'll hear this news, a small village is listed on auction at eBay. What does that mean to you? In my view, it has a symbolic power that even a rare thing can be sold online. Right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Right. And by the way, so we have plane. Plane is the only category where we sell, and we also give you on rent. So you can take a 9-seater, 16-seater on a rental per hour basis. So we do a lot of rental during a wedding season, during elections. Right? But yes, right. This is like, and you would not believe, I'll have over the years, a lot of product managers will come. Someone will inherit the homepage of that room. Then he'll say, Sandeep, I looked at the data. There's not even a single plane we sold. So can I remove plane from the homepage? And I said, you will be on a PIP if you do that.
So how it's complex to manage so many businesses, right? So you're not just doing marketplace for second-hand vehicles. You're also doing loans. You're doing insurance. You're doing, I'm sure, many other things as well. Renting, I just got to know. Then explain us the structure of your company. How does this all work in tandem and smoothly?
Yeah. See, so Pratham, Droom is a platform. It's an e-commerce platform. Like a lot of companies take a platform approach. Apple is a platform. Google is a platform. Amazon is a platform. And typically, if you look at Earth has its own, there's a solar system. Even if there's no Pluto, no Mars, no Moon, I don't think there will be life at Earth. Right? Everyone has some role to play. So typically how in business side, how the platform work, this platform surrounded by ecosystem of services is a very powerful combination of business model. So I started Droom as an automobile platform where we are within automobile product, condition, seller, geography, agnostic. So we are the only platform which sell bicycle to plane, new and used, EV and ICE, right? And anywhere. We are available in 1174 cities. It's the power of technology. So that's a platform. Then automobile is not necessarily a very obvious category for e-commerce. Clothing, shoes and accessories, health and beauty, jewelry and watches, gift and flower, electronics, computer, mobile, they are standardized category, right? So transaction, the search time, information asymmetry is very less and transaction can happen very quickly. But that is not the case in automobile. Automobile has 5 hurdles. It's a high touch and feel category. Big ticket item, low propensity to buy, and price of going wrong is very high. And if you want to reverse it, it is awfully painful. If you buy a 50,000 rupees laptop and it does not work, you will not lose your peace of mind. But if you buy a 50,000 rupees motorcycle, it does not work, you will be on anti-anxiety medicine, right? So this is the nature of the category. And I would say this category, there are 8, 9 categories more like that. One is finding a life partner. Another is finding a dating partner, buying a home, taking a home loan, finding a job, changing a job, college admission, luxury vacation package, relocation, and buying automobile. These are 10 categories which are big, high touch and feel, big ticket item, low propensity to buy, right? And price of going wrong is very high and reversing is very difficult. You join a company, 3 days later say, this is not for me. It's not a good news for you, your boss, your family, and the headhunter. You marry someone and say, I can't spend my life with that person. That's not a good news for anyone. So automobile is unfortunately is like that category. So to answer your question, I had to now build lot of services so I can lower the entry barrier of automobile getting bought and sold online. So I built, so, and this is not a brand new sealed in a box item. It's a used car. It could be good, bad, and ugly. You have, people have bizarre habits. Back seat is very abused, right? So I had to build a product called Orange Book Value, which gives you fair market value of a used vehicle. I built a product called Eco, which inspect a vehicle not by a 12th pass auto mechanic, but by a award-winning US patented technology. I built a product called Droom History, which gives you historical record of the used vehicle. So we kept on building these services. 8 years later, by the way, for first 8 years, it was only one single stream of revenue, which is marketplace, right? Okay. Right? Then we realized, then we achieved our AWS movement, where we said everything we built to create adoption for Droom can be now sold to others. So Orange Book Value, Eco and History now actually sold to IDFC, HDFC, Toyota, Yamaha, Honda as a SaaS offering, right? So when you are taking a, let's say, insurance policy from ICICI Lombard for your car, and ICICI Lombard will check the price of the car, they will use Orange Book Value. So that became my second revenue source. Then, like Mitsubishi, everyone knows Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi Motors market cap is 45 billion. But Mitsubishi owned a bank, which was called Mitsubishi Bank. Now it's called MUFG. MUFG is the 6th largest bank in the world. By the way, they also own Morgan Stanley, which perhaps I am assuming everyone knows. That it's the 6th largest bank in the world, worth $2 trillion. But their heritage started from automobile. GM would have failed 30 years back if they did not have GM Financial. So my third product I created is Droom FinTech, where I provide loan, insurance, and escrow payment. Right? And then I get 225 million annual traffic and like a billion pages view time and 1 billion minutes of time spent. So I thought, why not to monetize through advertising? So to answer your question, Droom is now structured into 4 strategic business units. One is marketplace, where we take rate on every time we make money from sell. Yes. Second is Droom FinTech, where we make money from loan and insurance. Third is Droom Cloud Service, which is our SaaS business. And fourth is Ad Reach, which is our marketing services. And there's a P&L head for each of them. We have a corporate layer, which is HR, legal, finance, internal IT, office admin. We have shared services, which is product, technology, marketing, and design. And then we have a P&L head. And service
Okay.
delivery, sales, and business development is at a P&L level.
Did you guys understand that? Right. This is incredibly important. I think to understand how an organization is structured. I'm doing some restructuring on my end, and so
Yeah. So I think, look, I'm sure you would have read somewhere centralized model, decentralized model, matrix organization. So I always, in shop, clues, and room, we were always matrix organization. But today we have taken that to a different level. It is more of a, you can say, I'm the group CEO, and there are 4 mini CEOs. They are designed in a way where speed to market, autonomy, etc., is empowered, but they also have access to the maturity where it matters. For example, HR, legal, finance,
when
etc.
they need something done, they will go to the marketing team and say, "Yaar, ye kaam kar do."
So shared services is 1 degree apart from P&L guy, but so in marketing they can even identify that this guy is working for my project.
Right.
But in HR, legal, finance, it's 2 degree apart.
Right.
So they can't identify that he's working for me, but they will still say, "आप मेरे को 3 hiring करके
So
दो."
then the marketing guy who's working for the fintech business, is he reporting to the fintech P&L head?
He
Or
has a dual reporting, straight
Dual.
line and dotted line.
You guys understand all of this, right? This is incredibly important. Awesome. Got it. I think I'm going to pause here. I'm sure a lot of you have questions as well. And I want to open it up to
Sure.
Q&A. I had some more departments. We had to still cover tech and HR. HR we covered a little bit. I also wanted to cover personal stories, but we'll come to that later
sure,
maybe.
Sure.
But any questions, guys? You can raise your hand. I will say, point at you, and then you can ask your question. And keep it short and scream your question out loud so that it's covered here. Yeah.
About fundraising, sir. So basically, you talked about how the media mention helped you kind of get your second round as well, and how the first round had a lot of your past history and your past deployment had a role to play with the connections you had. For founders who are building here and for people who are early in their careers, how do we build brands out of ourselves so we can have sort of a founder-led brand that can attract investors as well?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. See, but just to clarify, the second round of capital, the trigger was, I think media mentioning was not an accolade which led to a funding. It was more like knowledge that, okay, a new company from someone returning from Silicon Valley is being built, and can I be part of that? So it was more like that. It's not like that I came in Shark Tank and then my 2 round of funding happened, right? So anyhow, but see, in my view, look, funding wise, as I think we have kind of covered this before, but just to be clear, I feel that like someone says, भगवान मेरी लॉटरी निकाल दे, राइट? सो एक दिन भगवान भी परेशान हो जाता है और वो बोलता है, भाई लॉटरी निकालना मेरा काम है, पर तुमने लॉटरी खरीदी नहीं हुई अभी, तो जब तक खरीदोगे नहीं, खरीदना तुम्हारा काम है, निकालना मेरा काम है, राइट? So if someone is looking for a job, if they don't have resume updated, they are not mentioning on LinkedIn looking for a change, or they are not telling people in their circle that I'm looking for a job, it's not like कि रात को 2 बजे सरस्वती will come and say, बच्चा कल 9 बजे तुम्हारे को job मिल जाएगी, right? So my point is, if you are a founder and you are raising a money, what is your toolkit? Do you have a business plan? Do you have a pitch deck? Do you have a blurb? Do you have a financial model? Do you have a market size? Do you know your competition? Do you know your unique strategic advantage? Do you know your go-to-market strategy? Do you know your talent acquisition? Who are the other team members? What makes you uniquely qualified to do this? Why you, why now? So at the minimum, these are the 10 things I would say is like all equivalent of buying the lottery. And lottery lagna is option value. Option value will never have a downside risk, but it will have an upside. But if you don't create option value, see, if I go to a temple, there's nothing called Dakshina or Dan Patra. I'll probably go and come back. But if someone put a small box and put a swastika on it, I think it will not be empty. Right? So same way, as an entrepreneur, every day you must create an option value. And that option value on an iterative basis is taking you closer to your goal.
Yeah. 4 reels बन जाएंगे इस पे. You know what I mean? Very reel worthy. All right, who's next? Go ahead.
please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand, there's a 3 times more demand for the second-hand four-wheeler, right, in India compared to the two-wheeler. So I'm just trying to understand the consumer psychology when it comes to, say, getting something which is second-handed. And if you've seen the fashion industry, thrifting hasn't really worked very well in India, right? So what other products do you see where second-hand buys there's resistance from the consumer's
Yeah.
standpoint?
Awesome question. See, unlike US, Western Europe, and Japan, India is a low trust market. So anything you do which cause information asymmetry, moral hazard, it will always have impediments why a transaction between two unknown people may not happen. So any item which is used will have information asymmetry and moral hazard. But let me say this way. In my view, anything which has a higher economic life versus the average duration of a single ownership will have a circular economy. So car coming from assembly line will last for 20 years. But on an average, an Indian drive the car for 5 years. So it will change hand 4 times. If you think about 1 lakh houses getting sold in Gurgaon, probably 40,000 or 60,000, depending upon where Gurgaon in terms of city evolution, maybe the existing houses getting sold, remaining will be the new. You as a professional, from the 25 until 65 will work 40 years, but not at the same company, right? So when someone is changing the hand for car, Droom is making money. When someone is changing the employer, Naukri.com is making the money, right? When someone is buying the home, Magic Brick or No Broker is making the money, right? So one is that, and then I don't know why you are saying 3 times higher car, etc. Just to give you a number, in India, 4 million new cars are sold every year. And for every new car, 1.6 used cars are sold. So if you do the math, around 4 million new cars and 6.5 million give and take used cars. But do you know India is the world's #1 country for two-wheelers? We sell 20 million two-wheelers new, and for every two-wheeler new, 2 used two-wheelers are sold. So 40 million used two-wheelers are sold. And just to give you a sense, only in spite of India being the 3rd largest automobile market in the world, only 5% of Indian households have a car and 24% Indian households have a two-wheelers. And if you look at the Western economy, I used to report this data to Bill Gates when I worked at Microsoft, how much time it took for the color television adoption going from 0 to 72%, which is considered to be the perfect adoption for any new technology, right? Car is at 72% for 3-4 decades in most other developed countries, right? So that is why. So anyhow, but the other things you are mentioning, there are so many other challenges, right? The last part of your question, what is a big ticket? Theoretically, the T-shirt I'm wearing, the economic life of this T-shirt and my single ownership overlaps. It does not. If it does not, then I may give it to someone. Even my own driver will say, "Sir, आपकी T-shirt बड़ी अच्छी है, जब आप डालना बंद कर दोगे, मुझे दे देना." Lot of time when you are in a different era, I'm a much older, but when I was a small kid, India will import it was called rags cloth. The clothes gently used by other countries will come to India and will get sold. Some countries, then but trust, cost of fulfilling, supply chain, all those are the challenges. But here is one more problem. Do you know there's a social stigma sometime with the used items? So out of the top 15 automobile market in the world, there are 2 countries where there's a discomfort buying a used car. Any guesses? Any those countries? China and Malaysia are the only 2 countries. Do you know in India, 2012 was the first year where number of used cars sold became higher than the number of new cars sold. So that was a tipping point, inflection point, one of the trigger for me to consider Droom, right? Someone mentioned Germany. Actually, the world's best ratio for number of used cars sold for a new is UK, where every new car, 3.3 used cars are sold. Germany, Japan, and USA, all are 3 very close to each other, around 2.8 used cars. Part of my thesis is India will eventually reach to 2.5 or 2.8. It's already at 1.6 now. During COVID, and if you recall, there was a shortage of semiconductor and a lot of chips of the automobile, right? That time, India touched almost 1.8.
Now it's back.
Now it's back to 1.6, yeah.
China would be how much?
China, it is for 2 decades, it was 0.4 used car sold for every new car. It is 0.7 now. And part of the reason is no country has actually unleashed its true economic power unless it given a freedom of transportation to its people. So it was part of China's country level strategy to lower the entry barrier for people to buy their first new car. So the insurance, the car, excise duty, and the loan, etc., were very, very cheap.
28%.
That's right.
Yeah, the cars are expensive because 28%.
That's right.
Before we go on to the next question, I want to have just 3 quick questions. One is, this is a question I get asked a lot. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going? Ups and downs, this, that. You've made enough money. Like, why do you care?
I used to have the same question, not for me, but for Sachin Tendulkar, for Salman Khan, for Shah Rukh Khan, for Modi ji. If your target was to become Prime Minister of India, first time you became at around 60, at 73, why the hell would you travel 17 hours per day? Even pilot who's 26-year-old, probably, or a helicopter pilot, probably his ears are not working, but Modi ji is giving 2 hours speech after that. So I think, Pratham, I don't know, like I may sound very philosophical than I want to be, but I think it is never what you just said.
Never finished.
Yeah, right. It's never like, I don't see, if I had to create a unicorn, then I should have left long back.
So what is the source of motivation? Like, do you really care about second-hand cars so much? Yeah, nahi, second-hand cars ko main 1.6.
Actually, that was for me, that was never to begin with. So for me, actually, personally, I think it is 6, 7 things. One, until I'm learning, I'm excited. Second is I'm growing. Third, I'm getting great exposure. Fourth, I get a feeling in my career that I'm making an impact. Fifth, absolutely wealth. And now, after 2 companies, it is not only wealth for me, but also everyone who has given their heart, blood, and sweat to Droom, also the investors who gave a lot of money, right? And finally, maybe as you get older, is legacy. What do you leave behind? Like the kick that we worked, we disrupted, we permanently changed how automobiles is bought and sold, right? I remember someone asked, when I was Wall Street analyst, I think someone asked Larry Page, one of the co-founder of Google, that, Larry, when do you think you are done building this product? And he said, a good product is where you are never done building it. It's a work in progress. Today, Google has 2 lakh employees, maybe 60,000 are engineers. I hope you will agree, best engineers still work on search. And they have a monopoly in search for the last 2 decades, right? So I think these are the things which
Right.
probably,
I think the first point you mentioned, right, which is if I'm learning something new, if I'm being exposed to something new, if I'm meeting new people,
right,
that becomes the going force. You read?
I read a lot, yes.
3 books that we should read today.
One book, I mean, it's a very popular, Atomic Habits. I mean, I think you will do injustice if you have not read the book. I feel that it should be mandatory in this country. Before you get married, before you take your first job, before you start a startup, you should read that book. I'm a big fan of Robert Greene, Power and Politics. Have you read that book? 48 Laws of Power, right?
Achha.
Awesome book. I think that book, I was a student in a business school when I read that book. And even if today, I think I have read since then maybe 800 books, that book stood apart for me. It changed me. Many times it corrupted me a little bit. Not corrupted in the sense giving money under the table, but like just made me more like dunyadari thodi zyada aa gayi. Then, Malcolm Gladwell's whole series of books, David and Goliath to Blink to Outlier, all are brilliant books.
And how does someone, or when does someone really catch your attention in an interview? Like in a job interview.
See, I actually let me say this way, since 2010 until today, I would have done maybe 7,000 or maybe more interviews. I have rarely taken a skill interview. I only look for person's passion, energy. When they talk about themselves, their interests and hobbies, do their eyes sparkle? What is their body language? Right? For me, actually, that is everything.
Is there a question you ask to determine that?
See, I mean, we have a lot of, with a 10-year-old company, we have a lot of wisdom how we can get that out from others, etc. But for me, it is a very simple conversation. With me, it's never an interview. It's more like, for me, like sounds very cliche, but you're just knowing someone's journey, right? And some of the decisions they took and why. I think those are the kind of things I just generally focus.
What openings do you have going on right now?
Well, we actually had our almost drought, but right now we have been hiring a lot of people. So right now we are looking for 3 to 4 product managers. We are looking for someone in social media marketing, performance-based marketing, with a maybe upper hand on SEO. And then couple are more of enterprise SaaS sales and advertising sales jobs. But I think we may have around 30 jobs. Unisha would be more than happy to connect our HR team. In fact, they have, absolutely will be more than happy to look at.
Awesome. 30 is a lot. Questions, guys. Let's come back. Yeah.
Hi, sir. Thank you for saying that this side. So I think we got a little bit of peek of how much money there is out there for us to actually grab, and how international markets
kind of tend to look at investing differently. So could you help us understand how us sitting right here, maybe in 2 months in our VIP, can actually crack global investment?
See, the thing is, I think the question you asked, in my view, I think ultimately the whole world follows the best practices, or your wisdom or practices get developed for any industry, for anything. Sooner or later, it will catch up. In my view, 1 decade back, someone, like the question you asked, someone raising a money in India, and their preparation in their own head versus what global investor is looking would be dramatically different. But today, at least I think Pratham and I would probably know at least 10 people minimum who have gone through Y Combinator and built a big company. But before that, they never stepped into United States ever. The only in the United States they knew was through YouTube or through Taylor Swift and Britney Spears and Kim
Friends.
Kardashian and whatnot, Friends, Suit and whatnot, right? So I think that gap is bridging. But in my view, what makes your pitch special for a global investor is your ability to articulate India story, which you take it for granted in India. In India, वो बोला कि मुझे आईना दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है. I know it. In fact, most of the VCs have a very big ego in India. When you tell them about market size and the macro trends, say, skip that slide. That is my work. You go to the next slide, right? But your unique way of articulating why India and why you in India is very, very special, right? And in my view, if you look at what is happening globally, I think India is a fastest growing large economy, and I don't see how that is going to change unless we mess up big time for the next 1 decade, right? And I think this one friend of mine I met, I think you probably know them too. They met Michael Dell and his wife at an event, and they got 6 million from them. I don't know कौन सा डोसा खिलाया था, but right, but they got. So I think just my feeling is that I think also, see, look at you, look at all of us. We are global citizen. We are not like the India, that traditional India, which would be a stereotypical India, which we carried out, our prior generations carried, right? So the gap is bridging. Whatever is happening in Silicon Valley, whatever is happening in Silicon Valley, someone in San Francisco may be consuming later than you, right? What did printing you know, like, I'll sorry if I may
No, no,
digress.
please.
In 1445, around 1445, printing press got invented in Germany. You know, literally that became the precursor to Renaissance and Industrial Revolution. Why? Because the simplest stupid knowledge also was able to be get printed on a 1 cent paper and could be distributed. And that time in India, knowledge was not venue, and person who is imparting the knowledge agnostic. So you had to be in Gurukul with a Dronacharya to be Arjun, right? But when the printing press got invented, they were able to print any knowledge very quickly to everyone. Same way, in my view, to answer your question, low speed internet, every one of you have a smartphone, the CPU and hardware of that is actually no less than a desktop 1 decade back, right? And social media, right? Even venues like this, right? I would give my arm and leg to listen to. I remember when I got to although I was very fortunate to be Wall Street analyst, so I had a certain access to all these people. But before that, I remember when I met Reed Hastings, LinkedIn founder, that day I could not sleep. And literally, I was like writing and almost at an OCD level that I got everything he said right. But nowadays, so you can bridge that gap very quickly. In fact, you are like as global citizen as someone else. Only, yeah, right? So I feel that your story is same. Only thing is why India should be added to a global investor. And he wants to hear that. And honestly, pardon my language, but he's ready to be seduced.
So on that note, I'm sure many of you are not going to get some sleep. So thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this was very candid, very open. And I think a lot of us have a lot of learnings. And I could see everyone just nodding their head as you were speaking, even though they were not looking at you or you were not looking at them. But everyone was nodding, very, very engaged. That seldom happens. But thank you so much.
Thank you,
Pratham.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I must say I've known Pratham for maybe over a year, or know of him for several years. Then we got some common friends, started meeting. He gave me a tour of this facility. Meeting you, I feel this is really, in my view, this is really the, what is now possible, which was previously not possible. That is what Pratham is doing in his space. And I feel it is very effective. I told you about when I met Reed Hastings, like an OCD, I was taking notes and refining them. In my business school, I probably met 4 business leaders. And that learning I carry till date. Theoretically, this platform and this place gives you leader probably 4, maybe
in a week.
Yeah.
So far it's more.
So you know how Amir Khan said I go. He was going from one class to another because he's saying कि यहाँ मुफ्त में ज्ञान बिक रहा है and मुझे सब लेना है, right? My personal advice would be that everyone work for 40 years in their career. First 15 years you spend for learning, so that the next 25 years you can have exceptional earnings. I mean, that's how I build my career, right? And so I think wishing you all the best, from job to running any project to even some of the items. If you are selling in a drop shipping, please send me a link. I buy everything only online, right? Right. But please give me a right promise for how much time it'll take for shipping.
No RTO. No RTO.
Okay, right, yeah. But Droom is just 2 miles away. We are happy to collaborate in any manner. We do have multiple openings. If you fit the bill, we'll absolutely give you full chance. And otherwise, wishing you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.